everyone! Welcome to the channel dedicated to sharing the profound insights and wisdom of Andromedan contactee Alex Collier. If you're new here, you're in for a journey that expands your mind and consciousness, bringing you closer to understanding the messages from the fifth density Andromedan extraterrestrials. For those returning, we're grateful for your continued support. Before we dive into today's enlightening content, we have a small favor to ask. If you find value in the knowledge shared in this video, please consider hitting that like button, subscribing to our channel, and clicking the bell icon so you never miss an update. Your engagement helps us amplify Alex Collier's message, allowing us to reach a larger audience with these vital messages. We'd also love to hear from you, so please engage with the comments below. Whether it's a question, your thoughts, or even just an emoji for the sake of engagement, every comment counts. We read every single comment, and your feedback is incredibly valuable to us. Additionally, if you'd like to support us further, consider giving a super thanks tip by clicking the heart with the $sign. This small gesture allows us to continue bringing you more of Alex's messages, unfiltered and directly from his lifelong experiences with the Andromedans. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy today's video.
Welcome to webinar 62. It's been many, and they keep coming, and they get better. And I'm really looking forward to the Moses bit. Got a particular interest in Exodus. So, without any more further ado, over in Colorado, how are you, Alex?
Hey, JP, I'm good. I was just sharing with James and JP that it's overcast today here in the Rockies, but it isn't cloud cover, it's smoke from all the fires in the West and Canada now. Apparently there's some forest fires that are going on, and the wind is out of the northwest heading to the southeast, and it is blowing all that smoke over us. It's really quite something. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming to our little webinar, 62. Even I'm amazed. I'm still trying to figure out how to do these things. So it was nice to hear from some of you thinking that they're getting better. That's encouraging for me. We're going to talk about some subjects today that are controversial because they go against current thought and they challenge dogma. And when we get to the Moses part of this story, of this webinar, I'm going to give you some background as to how I got into this, and why I've asked so many questions of the A's about all this. And it's been interesting. It's been a very, very interesting journey. And in addressing things in the New Testament, and now we're going to get into some of the things in the Old Testament, it is and never has been my intention to vex anyone. But like you, I wanted to know. I absolutely wanted to know. And I will get into what inspired me to question everything about that. But first, what we're going to do is we're going to cover some current news stuff. Politically, I'm an independent. I have been since Ronald Reagan left office. And, you know, my attitude is whoever's the best person for the job, who's ever the most honest, and actually has the best applicable tools, should be elected to office. I've always felt that way. What we have going on today, at least here in the United States, and I know that there's a lot going on in Britain with Theresa May, The European Union, there's a lot of issues in France, Macron. Italy just had a huge swing in another direction. Germany absolutely has its issues. What's obvious is that there's a lot of change. What's also obvious is that the frequency is changing and the people are choosing a different path. The rulers, the cabal, the deep state, the Illuminati, whatever term label, the International Banking Consortium cabal, whatever we call it, whatever you call it, they're not left or right. They never have been left or right. To create the right or the left was just to create a distraction and to create a lot of controversy and create a lot of division. Because when you want to rule and take over, that's what you do. You divide. So you create the right or the left. These people, these beings, they're up or they're down. Okay? They're up or they're down. Well, now they're interested in taking everybody down. And most of us, the people, those who have awakened and those who are awakening, they want to go up. So what we're really getting to here is that once again, humanity is creating a domain of knowing. Whatever their hopes and desires, whatever their frustrations, whatever it is that they consciously have been thinking about or brainstorming either individually or as groups on how to fix the world is now manifesting itself. Okay? Things that have been hidden are being exposed. Now, we can't all credit all that to the benevolence. We as a humanity have to take some credit for this. We also have to take some credit for all the screw-ups and the horrible things that humanity's been through. Because if you are paying any attention to quantum physics and their testing and research and white papers on the nature of reality, pretty much everything that we've been taught that's disempowered us has been designed specifically to disempower us. It really turns out it's all bullshit. Bravo Sierra, excuse me. Turns out it's all Bravo Sierra. We are far more capable, far more intelligent, far more intuitive than they would ever really want us to know or to be. Because that lessens their power and their authority, their godlike qualities. Now, there are a lot of Americans on the webinar and that listen to these. And I've had a lot of emails about what's going on politically. And, you know, it's very interesting and it's very hard to wrap your head around it because it's like this continuous version of a Jerry Springer show. It just gets insane and it goes on and on and on. So, and I totally get that. I totally get that. But a lot of what's been happening, well, for those who are paying attention, whether you're right or you're left, there are some actual facts that really, really matter. If you can take the political dogma completely out of the picture and just drop it and just look at the facts, the deep state that's here in the United States is clearly showing itself. The United States has a legal system, but it doesn't have a justice system. The justice system's been completely compromised by militarizing the entire system. It's been hijacked. And the example I'm going to give you today is this. Paul Manafort, who ran Trump's campaign, the issues that he's being charged with now by Robert Mueller, those same issues came up in 2005. And he was completely exonerated from all of those charges and all of those accusations back in 2005. And the person who exonerated him of all of that stuff was Rob Rosenstein, okay, the acting deputy director of the Justice Department. Okay, the same person who appointed Mueller to now go after him. So you have to ask yourself, well, how can that be? Because it's political. Okay, everything's weaponized now. If you're paying attention to the pedophilia and who's starting to be arrested and the names that are starting to leak out of Hollywood by those who have been arrested, you're going to be shocked as to who's been involved in this stuff. And they all go hand in hand. It's all about controlling by manipulation and controlling and manipulating by compromising individuals. And it's nasty stuff. It's really, really nasty stuff. And it's going to be shocking stuff. But it's beginning to pour out. But that's what you have to do. The media, the only thing I can say is this. Believe nothing that you hear and half of what you see, which was something my grandfather used to say. But whether it's the United States or anywhere else in the world, always, always, always protect free speech. There is no freedom at all without free speech. Gotta have it. Gotta be able to express yourself. You gotta be able to express ideas. You've got to be able to question authority, to question what we're being fed. We absolutely, positively have to protect free speech. Because at this point, it's all on the people. The media's already sold out. I mean, it's just amazing the lies they say that they get away with. I don't know what else to say, but free speech. We've got to save free speech, no matter what. Because if we can protect and guarantee ourselves free speech, then we can protect all of our other rights. Because we can call them on it. Okay? And we can share the information with others. Now, moving along. 500 renowned scientists in the world have now come forward and they've joined together and they are completely rejecting Darwin's theory of evolution. Now, most of these people are involved in biochemistry, chemistry, DNA research, all forms of the life sciences. They have all been talking and compiling information all these years, and they have absolutely come to conclude that the dogma of evolution is Bravo Sierra. It is not how any of life on this planet happened. They also know that approximately 280 million years ago, life suddenly appeared, sprang forth on the planet, and has been going gangbusters ever since. With some bumps in the road, however, such as pole shifts, meteor strikes, alien extraterrestrial wars that have happened in the past, etc. So that's a very interesting, that's interesting. The new hypothesis that they're all leaning towards is extraterrestrial life, the intervention of extraterrestrial life. And the author who put that article together regarding this white paper is Arjun, A-R-J-U-N, Walia, W-A-L-I-A. So you might want to research that if you so choose. In the last couple of webinars, I've talked about historical history, historic humanity, things that we now know to be true based on archaeology, paleontology, etc. What's really interesting is that, you know, the narrative is that Columbus discovered America. I mean, that's the primary, okay? And of course, we absolutely now know for a fact that that just simply isn't true. Because of the archaeological record and the proof that Sumerians, Chaldeans, Phoenicians, Celts, Vikings, Norse, Egyptians, their artifacts are all over the world, built artifacts. We also know that tin was imported to the Middle East by the Sumerians and the Chaldeans. We also know that they went to the area known as Lake Titicaca when it was at sea level, because that's where the mines are, to get the tin to bring it back, tin and brass, because those things were not at all in abundance in the Middle East during these during those time periods. So the question needs to be asked, well, how did the Sumerians, the Chaldeans, the Babylonians, the Philistines, etc., the Assyrians, how did they know that tin was down in South America? Who drew the Peri-Reis map, which you can look up? It's one of the oldest, that pretty accurately outlines the coastlines of every major continent on the planet. Who drew the map of Antarctica, which is even older than the Peri-Reis map, that totally nails the coastlines of Antarctica with no ice on it? How did they do that? Now, both of these maps are stunningly accurate. And they can only have been done with a perspective from the air. Someone who drew them or had knowledge of them, who was able to get other maps, or even older maps, had to have a perspective from space. Now, I'm open to the idea that Fred Flintstone and Barney Rubble flew on a pterodactyl and were drawing this stuff with their crayons. Although I don't really think that's how it happened, but I'm open to it. So the point I'm getting to is that humanity has this incredible history to it, an amazing history to it. We've had more advanced civilizations here than we are today. We don't know anything about it because they don't want us to know anything about it. And the way the system is set up is that it has been designed to dumb down humanity and at the same time punish us for being dumbed down. And humanity can't win. That's enslavement by any stretch of the imagination. The good thing is that humanity is waking up. We're now questioning everything. All of this information is beginning to seep out, or it's being talked about because of free speech in areas where it was never talked about before, or in areas such as the scientific circles completely denouncing the theory of evolution. And it's because humanity, on an intuitive, intellectual level, probably more on an intuitive level, has decided we're going to move in another direction. We're creating a brand new domain of knowing, just like creating individual liberties, just like the Magna Carta. Those were moments in human history, at least that I'm aware of. There may be some, way beyond. Maybe Atlantis was another domain of knowing. I don't know for a fact. Where humanity took a huge step forward by empowering itself and embracing the potential of the future and being brave enough to leap into the future with hope, with courage, and with real commitment and integrity. I truly believe that that's where humanity's going. Now, other attempts have failed because of intervention, regressive intervention. And we're not going to have to deal with that this time. This time, that intervention is being handled for us by benevolent groups. And I've talked about that ad nausea in the past as to why they came here, because of something showing up in the future, tyranny showing up in the future. So this time it ends. It's not going to be the same thing over and over and over again. This time there's a shift. This time, however, humanity is going to have to put on its pants. It's going to have to step up to the plate. We're going to have to all get over ourselves and act like adults for the benefit of humanity, our humanity. That's going to happen. It's coming. It's coming really, really quick. Now, I find it fascinating that there is so much talk about extraterrestrial intervention, about ETs. There are ships with the advent of smartphones being recorded all over the planet. We even have the militaries of the world now releasing video from jet aircraft, helicopters, etc., that they have taken themselves. So they want this to come out. And now we have a group of renowned scientists basically advocating the hypothesis that something other than evolution happened here. This is all good. Okay? This is all good because what it does is it fixes an amnesia that was created for humanity thousands of years ago. We should have been further along than we are right now. But putting all that aside, we are where we are. And we have to do what we have to do now. This brings us to dogma. Now, I grew up in a Catholic family. I was an altar boy at St. Patrick's Church in upstate New York, Bedford Village to be exact. And where things really began to shift for me was I was 12 years old. And I had at that time thought about joining the seminary. I was very devoted to God. I'm not saying that I'm not now, but it's just in a very different way. The relationship is completely different. And we were doing a high mass, a Christmas Eve mass at the church at St. Patrick's. And Monsignor Blake, I don't know if he's still alive or not, I hope not. Monsignor Blake was doing the service. And he lasted about 15 minutes. He was so drunk that he literally fell off the altar. And we had to drag him back off the altar into the back room and go over to the rectory and get another priest, Father Loeb, to come over and finish the high mass. And that's where things shifted for me. And I began questioning everything. And I had conversations with my dad at the time, and I remember him giving me a book called The Vatican Empire. And I believe that you can't even get it anymore. I think the Vatican bought every copy they could. But anyway, he had it. And what it was a book about the business of the Vatican. And I was completely blown away about how the focus really wasn't on saving souls, at least not from the Vatican's perspective. It was about a corporate empire, and it was run like a corporate empire. Now, that's not to say that the priests and the sisters and the missionaries at the lower levels weren't sincere in their devotion, because they were. I am not talking about those people. But I began questioning things. And there was a point where I had the courage to ask Mornane Phaseus about this. And I'm on the record of talking about this 25, 26, 27 years ago. So I'm just giving some background here. And of course, the first thing I asked about was Jesus. And I'm on the record with what they told me there. I have shared their perspective about all that. The only question that I still have in regards to that, I don't question the history, but I question how the Shroud of Turin was created. Okay, that's the only question I have. I really would like to know that. I know what they've told me, and I don't suspect it of not being true in any way. But I would really like to see or have seen how that was made, the Shroud of Turin, and to know who it in fact is. Who is it really? So, for those of you who want to know, I don't know if you've ever heard of the Sinai Bible. It's the oldest Bible in existence. It goes back to 600 AD. Some of the manuscripts are even older than that. The British Museum has much of it online, or it can be researched, especially if you're over in Europe. The interesting thing about the Sinai Bible, and this goes for both the Old and the New Testament, is that when compared to the King James Version, there are 14,900 major discrepancies. Major discrepancies. Things that were said, things that were mistranslated, things that were purposely mistranslated, and historical events have been altered. And that leads us to where we are today. I started something a while back, I think maybe it was a year, we were going to do historical people, and I sort of got away from that. But I love the history part of this. I really, really do. So today we're going to be talking about Moses. And this is the A's perspective. I'm on board with it so far, but I just want to preface this. This is their perspective as to what actually happened. And I will do the best that I can in explaining this. I'm doing this without my notes. This is all from memory. Proof of what I'm about to share with you exists and is stored in the Colbertine Library, the Library of Colbert. And much of these texts are in the ancient Babylonian, Chaldean, Egyptian, and the ancient Latin language. But these scrolls still exist. Some of these scrolls survived the Library of Alexandria. Okay, they're the original texts from, some of them are the original texts from the Library of Alexandria. The Egyptian portion of this history that I'm sharing with you was written by Manetho in hieroglyphics. And other records exist to this day that are held and protected by an ancient Indian sect in India called the Council of Osaka, A-S-O-K-A. It originated in 280 BC. Because when they tell me stuff, I'm like, okay, where would I find this information? Now, obviously, I don't have access to this stuff. Also, this history still exists today in the written form by a Chaldean by the name of Berosus, B-E-R-O-S-U-S, and is in the Vatican and is part of the Colbertine manuscripts. Now, what set all this up for all of us today and our forefathers was an event that evolved around the Tower of Babel. The Tower of Babel was a spaceport. Zechariah Sitchin is absolutely correct about that. Humanity, our ancestors, were building their own spaceport. And once it was built, I guess we were going to ask or do something or build our own rocket so that we could travel the stars like those before us. The Nibiru, the Anunnaki, the Nephilim, the Pleiadians, the Syrians, those from Cygnus, etc., etc., etc. Lutes, Orion. Well, apparently that was an absolute no-no. We were never, ever, ever meant to have that much freedom. So what happened was that they divided the tribe of man into different areas of the earth, migrated them, and did an event called the Confusion of Tongues, where they changed the language so that after several generations, it would be very difficult for people to really begin to talk to each other. So at one time, we all spoke one language. Okay? And then they changed it. Now, I'm told the oldest language in the world is Tamil, the Tamil language. And until I know otherwise, that's what I'm saying. I'm telling you all, is that the Tamil language is the oldest language there is. So that means we all spoke Tamil until the confusion of the tongues, and they did what they did. This is where we have misinterpretations of words, events, words that don't mean the same thing or can be misconstrued or confused with something else. it's created this huge question mark and this huge void in humanity's identity. And I have to believe it was done on purpose. You know, the Nibiru, the Anunnaki, the Orion group, the reptilians, they're not new to what they did here to us. They've been doing this for millions of years in other worlds. So, you know, they know cause and effect. They know what happens. Confusions of the tongues, Tower of Babel, numerous Chaldean colonies migrated to different parts of the known world. Europe, the Middle East, India, Egypt, and even Northern Europe. The ruling gods of the times were pictured as huge snakes and or reptilians. When Moses, his real name was Mizraim, Mizriam, that was his birth name. We'll get to Moab Sesostris in a minute. When he was a leader of his Chaldean people. And apparently he was a very decent ruler. He really cared about his people. He put them first. He migrated and became very well known in that area of the region. And I think we're talking about anywhere from 2200 BC to 4600 BC. When he went to Egypt, he had 30,000 warriors. And this tribe, this collection of people that joined because there was strength and safety in numbers. The migration, the exodus that we're taught today, that was out of Egypt, according to the A's, it was into Egypt by the Chaldeans, where Mizraim ended up becoming king because there was so much infighting between the bloodlines of Egypt that the people chose to overthrow Egypt, those kings, and appoint this noble ruler as king of Egypt. The first, and to my knowledge, the only Chaldean king of Egypt. Before the migration of the Chaldean people, tribes along with many tribes of wanderers, gypsies called the Ibri, who were later to be known as the Hebrew, were interested. What's interesting is that the Chaldeans were going into Egypt and not leaving it. Along the way, many various Arabian tribes also came into the country to live because it was stable. Okay, it became very, very stable. Now, according to Mornay, there were 4 dynasties of pharaohs in Egypt before Mizraim, Moses, the original Moses, went into Egypt that go back 6,500 years. So now that takes us to almost 11,000 BC, which is somewhere in the area close to where they say Atlantis sank, 12,500, etc., somewhere in that area. Along the journey, all of these smaller tribes were protected by the Chaldeans and the Chaldean god known as Baal, B-A-A-L. Many of the tribes often became very, very large and wealthy, and they eventually migrated out of Egypt to other parts of the world to start other civilizations and cultures. They were the Assyrians, the Libyans. At one point, they were originally called the Lehabins, Lehabin, because I asked for spelling. The Lehabin, they became the Libyans. The Philistines, Asiatic, as well as other African countries. Now, Mizraim, the original Moses, and there's a reason I'm going here, he was born in a tiny village known as Shuin, Chuin, or as it also was known by in another language as Chion, Chion, in Chaldea. Now, at that time of the world in history, the Chaldeans worshipped the sun and the 9 constellations they saw in the heavens. That's right, 9. Their most sacred star was Aldebaran in Taurus, where we know the Egyptians, it was Orion. Baal, which, history represents as just being a mythological person. Baal was actually a real physical being, an extraterrestrial, a Nibiruan extraterrestrial. He and Mizraim often spoke and met in the mountains. The ship would come down and Mizraim would go up and meet him. Now, it's difficult because I know what history has taught us, and I'm trying to align the two things up, and I just simply can't because the stories are so different. So I will just share what's here. During the migration into Egypt, before it actually began, the Nibiru were very specific about their bloodlines. This is kind of where we get, well, this will make sense to you. They were very specific about their bloodlines. They didn't want them polluted in any way, whether it was from different races and or from food sources that didn't extend their physical longevity. They passed this on to those people who were literally their slaves, but were their worshipers, for lack of a better word, as well. The worshipers were also the slaves. Like the movie, oh man, I'm having a brain fart. It'll come to me. The stories, and the Old Testament talks about this, of the pillar of a cloud by day and the pillar of a light by night, so that they can continue to move. The reason for the 40-year exodus was to make sure that those people that had been eating yeast, yes, that had been eating yeast in any form whatsoever, would not enter into the land that they were being led to because they had infections. And I couldn't even believe this myself. The 40 years was to make sure that 2 generations perished, so that the youngest generation had been trained to eat different foods, to eat in a different way, and to make sure that they did not repeat the mistakes of their forefathers. That's why it took so long, and they were made to go all over the place. It was to make sure that 2 generations had passed away, and that the youngest generation was completely different than the oldest. Now, the reason for this is that the Nibirian physiology absolutely cannot eat yeast, okay? Because yeast is a fungus, and it not only shortens their lifetime, but it causes genetic damage. And let's see, I have it here because I had to look that up. It's a microscopic fungi that has at least 164 different species. And that once you get it, most can't ever get rid of it. So the idea here was for them to die off. Now, the story about the 10 Commandments is where this story gets real interesting. Now, you have to remember that this wasn't just the Jews, although the Jewish scribes, in order to give themselves a history, borrowed this. They borrowed all of this information and excluded who the real races were, or the ancestors were that actually relived the story, that did the story, that lived it. They basically borrowed this history, writing themselves into history because they were gypsies. They were smart, they were intelligent, they were incredibly resourceful, but they didn't have a country. So they would have to move around to wherever it was safe or to stay on the fringes. And the first real chance they had to be a part of something was this Chaldean migration into Egypt. Mizraim, at his very last meeting with Baal, died of radionics poisoning. He got real sick from the frequency of the ship. Now, I went back to Phaseus and Morine and said, well, why wouldn't Baal know that? And they said he did know that. He did know that he would eventually get sick. But Mizraim would not abandon the people. He wasn't going to allow thousands to die just to appease Baal. In other words, he cared for his people. Well, Mizraim died. What's interesting is that the being that came back down that hill, that mountain, was a completely different person. This is even recorded in the Chaldean texts, in the ancient texts, the Vedic texts, and even in the Old Testament, where he came down that hill, his face shone of light, which was actually a mask. I'm told that he had 2 masks on. He was not only taller, but he had a completely different personality. And that being called himself Moab Sesostris. The person who finished the Exodus was not Mizraim, the original Moses. They are 2 completely different people. Mizraim died, and Moab Sesostris came down and literally took over. Never, ever, ever removing the second mask. So no one would ever see him and know for a fact that he was not the same person, because everybody knew him. But he had a different personality. When the Exodus was finally over and concluded, The story says that Moab Sesostris went into the land of Moab, land that was his, given to him, and was never seen from again. And there, of course, there is no burial site, there are no bones. And I'm told that he was literally picked back up by Baal, put in the ship, and was reassigned someplace else. He had done his job. He was Nibiru. Now, the Hebrew scribes, in order to hide this, because now they've made themselves the focus, the centerpiece of this whole story, took the first two letters of each of the names, the first and the last name, and that became Moses. This is what I'm told. The book of Amos is supposedly an absolute blatant forgery and is completely Chaldean. I asked, well, who was Baal? And here's where my mind got totally blown. Baal is the exact same being known in the Vedic texts as Rama. Yes, you heard me right. Shiva, the god Shiva in the Vedic texts, is Marduk, who the Egyptians called Ra. So it's interesting, all of these texts, these histories, are actually all connected. It's just that because of the confusion of the tongues and the missing books that were taken, that were kept in Alexandria, that were either later burned or tucked and hidden away, they're the missing pieces that fill in all the gaps in this story of who humanity is and how we got to where we are today. That's the void. I'm just going to read this. Including the Hebrew forgeries of the Chaldean text now called the Old Testament. The book of Amos is the most blatant forgery of the Chaldean texts, from the Chaldean to Hebrew to English language. The biggest change, twofold: very strict doctrine about worshiping their god, Baal/Rama, was changed to Jehovah. Now, what's interesting about that is, where does the name Jehovah come from? It never really says, because when Moses supposedly asks Baal or Rama what his name is, what is his response? I am that I am. Well, how do you get Jehovah out of that? Okay? I'll let you figure that part out. The other one was dietary change. Now, we know that the Ibri, the Hebrew, are very strict in some of their dietary things. It was not to eat yeast. They were very, very specific about it. You don't eat yeast because it's a fungus, a fungi. Which is why when they talk about manna bread, it's unleavened, yeast-free. And I eat manna bread all the time now, and you can get it at a good health food store. It's called Manna Organics, and it comes in different flavors. If you can find it, or maybe you get your grocery store to order it. It's amazing with coffee in the morning. But that was one of the big things. They were very, very strict about it. And if you did break that rule because you were poisoning your blood, that's how they saw it. You were out. You were out. You were done. And, this is, and I'm sure that this is the origination of where we hear the blue bloods and the bloodlines and all of this yada, yada, yada stuff that we hear about. It's all learned behavior from this time period that's being hidden from us. Okay, eating yeast shortens the life and the health of the body. It also changes the body's frequency, apparently. The long migration was to kill off the sick and teach and change the younger tribes to not stray. Yeast is a single-cell microscopic fungus in which there are over 164 species. I don't mean to repeat myself. Before they traveled into the, quote, promised land, the sick were dead, and only the healthy and those without fungus survived. As this task was given to Moab Sesostris, when he was done, he left into the land of Moab and was not seen from again. Okay, I've already repeated this. Again, much of this history is confused, misunderstood, or is simply unknown because of the stealing of these ancient records by the Romans. And the old part of the Roman Empire that still survives to this day is the Vatican. Just what it is. You know, there's an old saying, earth saying, that the further you are from where you started, the closer you get to where you belong. I have to believe that that's true today. The further you are from where you started, the closer you get to where you are today. As humanity begins to wake up, as humanity begins to lift the fog and truly begins to think for itself and begins to ask the questions, the right questions, and no longer accepts dogma or just rubbish history that was fed us to dumb us down, we begin to get back to where we were. And that was one tribe, one humanity. And what's fascinating is that because of the internet, because of the media, which is a double-edged sword. On one side, it hurts and misleads and deceives. But on the other, it has taught all of us to basically begin to speak the same language again and to understand each other. We're no longer divided. So the technology that was created to brainwash is actually now in many ways uniting us, or could unite us, because information is almost instantaneous. We can almost all get it at about the same time. I just thought that was awesome. Now, the next thing I want to share with you is work that's being done by quantum physicists. There are several groups, studies going on right now, experiments, regarding the nature of reality and consciousness. Europe, Northern Europe, have done some of the most extensive research. The University of Australia and the Australian National University have just concluded another test on quantum physics, quantum reality. And what's interesting is this was their absolute conclusion. The tests prove that measurement is everything. At a quantum level, reality does not exist if you are not looking at it. And the researcher and lead researcher and physicist is Andrew Truscott, Truskott. So this is open for discussion. If we don't look at the past, does it even exist to us? They're saying it doesn't. So if it doesn't exist, and what we truly just have is the moment that we're in right now, this moment, then everything that happened in the past, all the pain, the grief, the deception, the betrayals, the history, none of it really matters. And if it doesn't matter, and all we have is this moment right now, right here, then why aren't we devoted, every single one of us, absolutely devoted to creating what it is that we really, really want as a family of humanity? Why? That's where we need to go. If we're not looking at the past, according to science, it doesn't exist. Okay. Now, the ancients have told us that, you only have the moment. That's where the gift is. The gift is the moment that you're in. That's the only reality that there truly is. We've known that for thousands of years, or they've said it for thousands of years. It's fascinating. How did they know all that? It's because they came from a more advanced, enlightened culture or society than we have now. It's obvious because we keep coming back to what the ancients taught, to what the ancients knew, which means they had to have known, and then we have moved so far away. The further you are from where you started, the closer you get to where you belong. All the broken pieces find their way home. All the broken pieces find their way home. No shit. That's where we are. That's where we are. We are making some real progress here. Okay? We're getting there. And I know I've gotten some emails this week. One from someone I think the world of, who's a teacher in England, who's just overwhelmed with all the negativity, and it's really difficult to wrap your head around what's going on. Because, here we are rediscovering ourselves, trying to find out who we are, where we are, what we're doing, what we're capable of, with everything trying to work against us, the establishment thing, the rulers. The rulers are being pushed out because they're just so damn corrupt, and they just suck the life out of everything that they touch. And they're just not going to be allowed to do that with us anymore. So there's intervention. That intervention is multidimensional. So what we have here is this multidimensional chess game going on, where we have all the events occurring on third density, shifts in consciousness that are arising, and that at the same time we have people who refuse to raise their frequency, who are really struggling and are more or less going in a completely different direction. Separation. Then we have fourth density. Intervention by fourth density means both benevolent, benign, and regressive, intervening. And they're kind of neutralizing each other. And then we have fifth density. Fifth density means coming and mentoring those in fourth as to how to break the juggernaut, to break the stalemate, to move this thing along. Of course, it's going to be very difficult for us to wrap our heads around. I mean, just trying to, for us at this level to try to figure out this statement, it proves that measurement is everything. At a quantum level, reality doesn't exist if you're not looking at it. Most people are never going to figure that out, at least not yet. So just trying to wrap our heads around something like that. But the movement of energy, the movement of frequency, and remember, we live in a holograph. It's all color, light, and sound. End of story. It's all color, light, and sound. Anyway. But if you look at the pieces of information that are coming out and the history that's being revealed or uncovered or released, the idea of more and more people openly talking about extraterrestrial life, advanced societies, multiple dimensions, multiple realities, parallel universes. This is all good because what it's doing is it's bringing us back to the beginning, to wherever that culture was, whatever time frame that was, where they knew all of this knowledge. We are now finding our way back, it looks like, to the beginning, to where our ancient forefathers were, where they had all this knowledge. And the missing pieces that we don't have is what happened then when they achieved this knowledge to bring us to where we are today. How did we get here? That's the $64,000 question. How did we get here? What were the events that led us to this place where now we're flipping back to where we were in the beginning? The further you are from where you started, the closer you get to where you belong. The ancients knew the world. They knew the land masses because they have maps. They drew maps. Okay, we're told that Antarctica's been under ice for millions of years. And yet, maps exist perfectly showing the coastlines and the harbors and the coves without ice on it. How'd that happen? Okay, how did whoever built the Great Pyramid of Giza, how the hell did they know to build it in the perfect location, the perfect dead center of the entire landmass of Earth? Folks, that's not an accident. They had to have space navigation. How did the Sumerians know how many planets were in our solar system, including the colors and including the fact that two of them were lying on its side from the outside coming in? They did. They did. They knew all this already. They had healing information. They had DNA knowledge 10,000, 12,000 years ago. We're finding our way back to the beginning, okay, to where maybe civilization fell or it was pushed off a cliff. It'll be interesting. The next few webinars should be pretty interesting. And I have no idea. So I would love to entertain some questions. Maybe nobody has any. We can go home early. I know that's not true. So, hey, before we go there, with my storage, I want to thank everyone. As of the beginning of the webinar, I just needed just under $400 to meet my goal to make that happen. Now I am sending out all those who donated a personal thank you card. I've sent the first 24 out yesterday and this morning, and they're going to Norway, Greenland, Austria, Italy, Africa, South Africa, and here in the States, Canada. There's a couple going to Canada. And I have more to get to, and I will, but I'm just letting you know that If you donate it to the cause, I'm mailing those thank you cards, handwritten thank you cards, to the address that's on the PayPal. If that's not the right address, then please use Galahad. And if you want a personal thank you from me, which I want to do, you have no idea what this means to me. Give me your address and I will send you another one. My return address is on it, which means that it hopefully should come back. But I've been paying on this storage for 8 years. Even when I was sleeping in the car, I would pay the storage and not eat, or put gas in the car, just so I wouldn't lose it. You have no idea what this means to me to get this done, to get it completed, to just bring my broken pieces back home. You can't know. And that's what the cards are for, is to thank you for it. Guys, I absolutely love you. You're just so awesome. You're just so awesome. All right, JP. Thank you.
All right. You hear me?
Yeah.
Excellent. So there's some interesting looking questions just even at the beginning here. So first of all, quick question from Nancy Statlander. Are you familiar with the Manor World Trust and Kim Possible?
No.
Okay. From Stephanie Cole. I take to heart what you say about focusing on what we love, what we want. My concern is that I suspect our world is about to change so radically that many of the things I would think to create would become obsolete in a very short time. Is it enough to focus on the quality of life I would create for my world?
Yes, I would think so, but you need to be specific. The more specific you are, the more you create what you really want. And I'm not implying that, we should all be creating what we want in a general relative manner. When I do my work, I am very, very specific about what it is that I want. And I write it down and then I hold it in my mind. And that's what I literally call to me. Very specific. Even right down to the color of the carpet. Okay? Or what kind of trees I want in the backyard. Very specific about that. And I think you need to be. I think you need to be as specific as possible. Yes, the world's radically changing, but it's always been changing. Nothing's never happening. There's stuff always happening. Excuse me, there's always change. We're just more aware of it now. And where we weren't before, our vision was this, then it became this, and now it's that. So we're seeing more and understanding more and aware of more. And soon it's going to be 360. We will have the 360 awareness of everything that's going on. It's definitely going to happen. Because that's our future. Our future is to go up. It is not to go back down. That's not going to happen. That's why there's intervention. This is going to get set right once and for all. I have absolutely no doubt about that. None whatsoever. Okay? The bad guys had their run. They had their run. They had everything. They had the ability to change the world for a better place. Instead, they only got more ravenous and more hungry and more greedy. And when they stripped humanity of everything, then they got mad at us because there was nothing left to take. They gotta go. They gotta go. It's over. Game over. We're just playing the rest of it out now. Okay? End the story. Okay, JP.
From Nancy Statlander once again. What can you tell us about Pine Gap?
Only what I know. that I could even talk about is what's already out there on the web. It's a joint base. Yes, agency is there. Yes, different militaries are there. But I don't know specifically what's going on down underneath that. I just don't know. The information I shared with you in the last webinar is my most current stat on that. Maybe Pine Gap's already been dealt with. I don't exactly know. I would think, based on its proximity and its ability to support the activities that are going on in Antarctica, as far as uncovering the cities and turning on the technology that's defrosting, literally, from the ice, and learning how it works, I would think that Pine Gap is huge in helping support that. And when that technology is there lifted, they're probably taking it to places like Pine Gap so that it can be taken apart, cataloged. Maybe they're dispersing, taking several components for reverse engineering apart. It's, however they do that. Corso's book is probably the best one on that. Lieutenant Corso's book is probably the best on how all that works. I'm sure that's what they're doing as we speak. I would think a lot of that technology would go to a place like Pine Gap, where it's safe, it's secure, and unless you know anything about it, you don't know anything about it. So it seems logical, and I'm sure there's other places like that in the Southern Hemisphere. But I would think that'd be one of the go-to places. That's all I know.
From Michael H. Alex, do you think that the loss and then regaining of one's passion could be a normal phase in spiritual development of human souls across the dimensions?
JP, ask the question one more time. Do I think the loss...
Do you think that the loss and then the subsequent regaining, I'm just adding a few more words, of one's passion could be a normal phase in spirit? I mean, is it normal to lose and then claw back your passion? I think is a rephrase. Fair enough.
That's a good question. This is my personal take on it. And I can only base this on third density. I have no memory of truly living in fourth density, and my only experience in fifth density was 90 days. But the environment that my physical body was housed in was through technology. I mean, it was me, but I didn't fully integrate with fifth density because my physicality couldn't do that. That's my point. Passion, emotion, is clearly the movement of energy from soul. Clearly. I think where there are times where we lose it, where we lose the emotion, is maybe when we chose different life forms in different lifetimes to experience something different. It's like the old adage, you can't know the light unless you know the dark. And you can't know the dark unless you know the light. My personal opinion is that one of the greatest teachers we have is contrast. It clearly shows us through the extremes what we don't want and then what we do want. And that's what contrast does. And being an emotion having emotion and having no emotion is clearly a contrast. So that's my take on it. Someone sent me an email of an article, and I got it this morning. I haven't read it, but the headline was "Reincarnation is Slavery." Now, I haven't read the article, but my take is it's only slavery to those of us who don't remember. So, and if there was a manipulation to make sure that we forgot, then yes, I could absolutely see it as slavery. Or it could be perceived as slavery. But once you know that you're creating your reality, that you're creating this single moment, you then have the power to change it. That doesn't mean it's going to be instantaneous, but you have the power to change it. The universe does respond because it's built to respond. The creator, whatever that is, set this up to give us options, to give us the ability to create, to move in and out of dimensions. It's like, when you sleep at night and you dream and you travel in your dreams and you all know who you are. You're in another reality. You're in another dimension. You're not in third density. I hope you know that. You are already traveling. So there's never nothing going on. You're far more powerful than you realize. It's just embracing the power. It's being comfortable with the power. It's being honorable with power. And it's always, always, always being in integrity with yourself and with others when it comes to power. There are those who don't. And therein provides the contrast, once again. Okay? We got about 9 minutes.
Okay, here's an interesting question from Freddie Carroll. Hi, Alex. When we get to the fifth dimension, will wild animals stop killing each other like cats and birds? Will they evolve mentally past that type of behavior too?
I don't know. I didn't see any of that on the ship. That doesn't mean it doesn't happen. I just didn't see any of it. So wow, I just don't know. It's a great question. I just don't know.
It is indeed. From Mark G, I'm going to try and be rapid fire about this. I understand the technology to convert one metal to another exists. So why do ETs mine gold when they can mine easier, more accessible elements and then transform them?
Well, maybe at that particular time they didn't have the ability to. Maybe it was that they had very old technology that they wanted to keep using, which required specific types of elements. For example, the rings of Saturn. There is technology there that is mining equipment, very large ships, some of them 10,000 miles in size. That technology is still in operation. It's not that it's actually being used, but the crews are in stasis, they're automatons, and there are maintenance crews making sure that the equipment continues to work to this day. There are also mining equipments in the asteroid belt that are doing the exact same thing. But it's an ancient technology, it's really old. We look at, something 5,000, 10,000 years old is like, oh my God. But, some of this equipment is 50,000, hundreds of thousands of years old. Some of it somewhere in the galaxy may be 1,000,000 years old that still works. Can you imagine your Ford truck, running for 1,000,000 years? No, because we don't build anything like that. But these guys do. It has to be able to survive in space and do what they needed to do, and to protect the crews that worked on it. So they built these things differently. They built them to last. So that's what I got.
From Sharon Wallace. Hey, Alex, JP, and James. What is Alex's and or the A's view on the Q phenomenon? Is it real? Is it a psyop?
Okay, good question. I haven't talked to Mornay about Q. There are other things to talk to Mornay about. Q's not one of them. I do follow the QAnon phenomena. I find it absolutely fascinating and interesting. I'm not 100% sure, but I do pay attention to it, and I look forward to reading the next installments. Now, whether or not Q and or R is JFK Jr., I don't know. I find that interesting as well. That would be a real twist, wouldn't it? That would be something. But I just don't know. But it's interesting. The more insight that we get to what's happening behind the scenes, I only think is a good thing. Because it's a mess. And you have the deep state, the Illuminati, the cabal, everyone's at war, not only with each other, but also with the movement towards freedom for humanity. Because once we bust free, we're gone forever from them. And they know it. And they're going to lose everything. And they know it. So to me, it's all a good thing. All the broken pieces are finding their way home. I think it's a good thing. Someone sent me a donation for my storage, and I don't remember who you were, but you put that in the byline, the comment section. All the broken pieces find their way home. I want you to know, whoever you were, that I was very moved by that. I was caught by surprise, and I thank you for that. I really do. That was a very nice touch. Thank you. Okay. We got time for maybe 2 more questions.
All right. So 2 questions that are connected, from Lauren and from Sharon. Were the other 21 enslaved races Partal as well? And if not, why were they targeted? Were they strategically placed military outposts? And what are the tells if one is a Partal? How do you know if you're a Partal?
Okay. To the first part of the question, I don't know. But it's logical to go there. It would be logical to go there. And to the second part of your question, unless you're specifically told, and I don't know who it would be that would tell you that, but if you go back to the Blue Brain Project, where they talk about how our brains are already wired to see 7, 9, and 11 dimensions. From what I've told about the Partal, I would think those who are wired to see 11 dimensions, that's a dead giveaway. I don't know how you find that out. Maybe they could tell you. Maybe there's a process that they're working on where they can tell people how their brain is wired and how many dimensions they can see. Because if they can do it on the brains that they've already done it on, I would think they could do it with the rest of humanity. So maybe there's a process in place where they're going to start offering that service. But should that be the case, I would think if you could see 11 dimensions, you're Patal. Last question, JP.
Would you say an intense interest in science fiction tends to indicate unconscious memory of off-world lifetimes?
I don't know. Everybody's different. Some people, I don't know. I don't know how to answer that question. A lot of people who don't like science fiction. I refuse to think this is their first and only lifetime in a physical form. I think it has to do with frequency. Some people are drawn to it because of the frequency that it represents or that it holds, which is off-world space travel, more freedom, more expansion of consciousness, of probabilities, and maybe it represents that. And those who don't like science fiction, they're more grounded and earth-centered. They like structure, very strong structure. Where in space, science fiction, there's not a whole lot of structure. You know, it's the Wild West in space, pretty much. So that's my take on it. Guys, I gotta go. I only have the room's up. I don't have it any longer. And there's somebody behind me. Guys, I love you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for watching today's video. If you found it insightful, please like the video, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel and click the bell icon so you don't miss out on future updates. If you have any questions relating to today's video, please also leave them below. We read all the comments and take on board what our viewers have to say about Alex Collier's work. Remember, your support helps Alex Collier's knowledge and the messages from the Andromedans reach more people. If you'd like to support the channel even more, you can give us a super thanks tip by clicking the heart icon with a $sign. It really helps our team bring you more content. Also, be sure to visit alexcollier.org to sign up for our regular email newsletter. It's the best way to stay updated with the latest news, exclusive content, and upcoming live webinars. For the latest insights from Alex Collier, check out alexcollier.live. And if you want to explore over 250 past webinars, head over to alexcollier.tv. Thank you for being a part of this journey and supporting Alex Collier's work. We couldn't do this without you, and we're genuinely grateful for your support. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring the vast mysteries of our universe. If you would like to see the Andromedan contactee Alex Collier live via video stream, we hold a live online seminar every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. For more information on upcoming live webinars, please visit alexcollier.org.